I'm Shea, and we're here today at the North Carolina Christian Writers Conference talking with Dale about his new book that just launched this week.
Yeah, thank you. We've had a great week here at the Serious Writer North Carolina Christian Writers Conference. The church, as always, has been fabulous. The cooking's been wonderful. The hospitality's been the best you ever see. And we are having a good week this week. We've heard a lot of good classes, met a lot of good folks, and made some new friends. We are launching, we're right in the middle of my launch, First Down Devotions, Inspirations from NFL's Best, which is published by New Hope Publishers and Iron Stream Media. And they were here this week as well. We had a good celebration last night. And the book is, it's called First Down Devotions, even though it's not about football per se. It's about some well-known players in the NFL who readers will probably know their names. A couple of them they may not. There's a couple of team chaplains and some other folks like that a lot of folks really may not know about, but their stories are phenomenal. It's their stories of faith and their stories of struggles and how they dealt with their struggles with their faith. So it's football's the instrument we use in it, but it's really the players' testimonies and their faith. So it's not about football. You're not going to hear about football plays or football moments or memories. It's just the men who play the game and what they've gone through, because what they've gone through is probably going to be struggles I've gone through, you've gone through, so they can relate to people that way.
What is one of your favorite devotionals from the book?
Yeah, I've been asked that a lot. That's a good question. I have a lot of them that I like, but there's a couple of them that really stand out to me because the player I spoke with really related it to me well. One of them was with Chad Pennington, who had a great career at Marshall University. It's where my son went to college. And then he went on to have a really good career in the NFL with the Jets. Played most of his career with the Jets. He was one of the few players to ever win the Comeback Player of the Year twice, which is really rare. Then towards the end of his career, he was traded, went to Miami, and during his time there, he was benched. And he told me up at the Super Bowl when we were talking that he went through he called it his personal furnace because he was benched. He felt betrayed. He felt like everybody turned their back on him. The sport he put so much love into his whole life now, it didn't matter to anybody. He was forgotten about and he was just cast aside. And so he said he dealt with a lot of discouragement, a lot of the depression, and he hated the game. He said, I hated football. I hated going to work. I hated going to practice. I couldn't handle it anymore. And that went on for 2 or 3 years. So he said one night he was in his room and he just fell down on his face and asked God to help him through that and to show him why he's going through this. He now knows why he went through that because his job now is with the NFL. He's a consultant with the NFL for players who leave the league and leave that glamour, leave the lifestyle, and the autograph seekers are gone and the flash bulbs are gone. So now they were somebody in the eyes of the world, now they're nobody, and they have that identity problem. So Chad now helps those players who are going through discouragement to realize there's something out there for you. And he said he wouldn't have been able to go through that if had he not gone through it himself. So that's why he went through it.
What do you hope that your readers will take away from this book?
I hope some of the readers realize what we talked about earlier is that, I'm using famous players. I'm using names that these guys have a lot of money, a lot of fame, but they also have problems. And so I hope the reader takes from it that somebody may read about a problem that Kurt Warner had, or Benjamin Watson had, or Anthony Munoz had, that they struggled with, and how they got through that struggle. And I hope they can identify that and say, you know what, I went through that same thing, and this is how they handle it. I can handle it too. So I hope they get some encouragement by it, and I hope they can relate to some of these players they may not know about some of these struggles. And one of them is about Anthony Munoz, Hall of Famer, one of the best linemen ever to play the game. He told me in Cincinnati that he played at USC. He was sought after by everybody. Everybody wanted Anthony Munoz to come to their college because he was such a superstar. And he told me that when he went to college his freshman year, and this is Southern Cal, a lot of people there, right? Southern California. So his freshman year, he's sitting down, and some folks with Fellowship of Christian Athletes are there, and they're talking to some of the players, and they talk to Anthony. Hey, how's your classes going? Well, good. How's practice going? How's football? How are your grades? How's classes? Oh, good. How's your relationship with Christ? He was like, what? What do you mean my relationship with Jesus Christ? I don't know what you're talking about. So here he was, a freshman in Southern California, was never presented the gospel till he was a freshman in college. So the devotion, the point of this story is tell other people. Don't wait till you think this, everybody knows about it, because this is a guy in Southern California, thousands of people around, grew up in church, never knew and experienced through Christ, didn't know he could have a relationship until he was presented to it. So that's one of the stories there in that. So I hope people can take from that, it's your responsibility, not to badger people, but through a conversation. Hey, how's your relationship with Christ? How's the work going? Great. How's your kids? Great. How's your relationship? What do you mean my relationship with Christ? So you can open up a door that way and have a discussion.
What other works do you have coming out?
That's fun. That's a fun question, because I have a lot of works in the books in the making. We have 3 out now. One was launched last year, Buckeye Believer. The first in this series of devotionals from New Hope and Iron Stream is the first one was Dugout Devotions, which is the baseball version of First Down. I talked to a lot of professional baseball players, their stories, their testimonies, and compiled those. Now we're working on. We just sent in a book to New Hope on Alabama football. We're sending one in on Indiana basketball. We sent one in on Michigan football to a different publisher, and we have now the one I mentioned on Alabama. We're also doing one on Auburn University football, and those two are going to release at the same time, so it's going to be a fun time, because we're going to put Alabama up against Auburn at the start of the college season next year. Hope to create a little bit of friendly controversy in that, and pit those two books against each other and see which one comes out on top. So we have those in the works. As I mentioned, we have one on Michigan football, Indiana basketball, and then we're also starting works on volume 2 of Dugout Devotions and First Down Devotions. So we're going to be a busy couple of years, but it's always a lot of fun.
Where can people find this book?
They can find First Down Devotions and Dugout Devotions at newhopepublishers.com. They can find it on Amazon. They can find it at Barnes & Noble. It's in there. It's in Books A Million, and wherever books are sold. So, or they can go on my website to find it. But typically where they can find general books is where they'll be able to find Dugout Devotions or First Down Devotions. If they go to that store, if they go to Barnes & Noble and it's not there, they can either ask for it or else order it there, because it is being carried by them. It's in Target. It's on Walmart's website as well. So anywhere, if they just Google in First Down Devotions, there'll be a plethora of places they'll be able to purchase that book. But primarily New Hope, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Books A Million.
Why did they plan the launch for this time of year?
Well, this is August, obviously, and football season's right around the corner. So they wanted to generate some excitement. It's timely. We did the baseball launch in February during spring training, and as a result of that, we had a couple of high school teams actually purchase the book for their players. Some of them even did devotions with the book. They would be before practice. And so we're hoping to get the same response for First Down Devotions with some of the high school teams. We had one parent anonymously purchased enough books for the baseball book for the entire varsity team and the junior varsity team. They gave each player their own copy. So whether they're, the player's a believer or not, at least they now have it in their hands and they can look at it, and hopefully there'll be one of the players in there they like. They may say, hey, I want to see what this player says, and maybe create some interest there, some curiosity, because we do have some big names in both books. I mean, First Down Devotions has Kurt Warner and Benjamin Watson in it, Kirk Cousins, Andy Dalton from the Bengals, Ben Roethlisberger, which a lot of folks may not realize his belief in Christ now, because he did go through some personal struggles that was well publicized a few years ago, and a lot of people kind of questioned me on that. Why did you put him in that book? But Ben and I had a great conversation, and I believe him. I believe what he told me. I believe his experience. He said things that really were compelling to me about how he gave his life to God, and so compelling stories like that in the book. Have a couple of funny ones in there as well, which people will find interesting. So the launch was planned right at the beginning of football season. Interest there, and then so that was the main reason.
Well, we thank you very much for being with us here today at the North Carolina Christian Writers Conference, and we look forward to having you here again.
That's your, how's that feedback?
Yes, I see
Test
that.
1, 2.
I can hear you a lot better now, so it's good.
Awesome.
Whenever you're ready.
Do I need to have him just start over?
Just
Yeah,
do it.
just start over.
You do your thing again.
The whole thing?
Yep.
Okay.
The whole thing and then but the whole thing.
Oh, man. What did I say? All right.
It's a conversation.
It's not. All right. Hey, I'm Shea, and we're here today with Dale at the North Carolina Christian Writers Conference, and he's here to tell us about his new book that just launched this week.
It did. Thank you for your time. It's been a great place to be here. The church and the staff's been fabulous here at the North Carolina Christian Writers Conference, sponsored by Serious Writer. And we did have a book launch this week, my latest book in a series of sports devotionals. It's First Down Devotions, Inspirations from NFL's Best, from New Hope Publishers and Iron Stream Media. It did launch this week. It's been a good launch. It's been a good time. The book, if you like